Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to my channel, I Hate Rock Music, and this video is going to be about another really fine Welsh band called Ancient Greece. And Wales ended up producing not a lot of bands, but the bands that we know from Wales are really excellent. Man and Help Yourself come to mind, as well as Badfinger, and then of course Budgie, one of the great proto metal bands of all time, came from Wales. And then we have this band Ancient Greece, and they ended up making one album in 1970, and it's a good one. It's a humdinger. In some ways, it kind of reminds me of the general feel of, say, of something like an Edgar Broughton band record. There's a bunch of really tough rockers on it, and then there's some bluesy numbers and some folk numbers, and a really nice mixture. And then they have a really gruff lead singer. So they were originally called Strawberry Dust. They were around from 1960 to 1970, and the band lineup was Gareth Mortimer on vocals, Jake Bass on bass, Dick Ferndale on drums, Graham Headley Williams on guitar, Gary Pickford Hopkins on vocals, Phil Ryan on keyboards, and then eventually John Weathers came in on drums. And there's some interesting people in this lineup, of course. Gary Pickford Hopkins was the vocalist in another band called Eyes of Blue, and then ended up being the singer in Glenn Cornick's Wild Turkey. Phil Ryan, the keyboard player, also came from the band Eyes of Blue, as did John Weathers, the drummer. And so John Weathers ended up having an interesting career. He actually was one of the founding members of Wild Turkey, but left the band before they actually recorded their first album. But he joined Gentle Giant in 1972, so quite a interesting side step for him. To be in a band like Ancient Greece was pretty straightforward uh, uh, UK rock, and then going into something as complicated as Gentle Giant. And he also ended up uh, doing some work on a Buzzy Linhart, interesting artist that came out of New York in the late 60s. I remember picking up his records in cutouts, but I had no idea that John Weathers and a bunch of these guys from Eyes of Blue were his backup band on at least one of their records. So, so Ancient Greece put out their one album in 1970 in the United States. It came out on Mercury, and Lou Reisner produced it, so it's got a really nice production. He did the Three Man Army records and did a really great job on those, and John Weathers co-produced it as well. The album's called Women and Children First. One of the things that's interesting about the record, it came out with a kind of an abstract colored photograph in the UK version of it. But in the U.S., it had a really interesting cartoon cover, and that's where I came across it. I bought it in cutouts, probably about 1972, and I'd never seen a copy before that or since, frankly, in the used racks. But I was thrilled when I got it home. Of course, I was really into that kind of music and the harder music and everything else, and the cover is really cool, and so it was a real treat for me. So I've been enjoying this album for about 50 years, and not sure why they had different covers, and I'm not sure how they came up with the alternate cover in the U.S. Like I say, which is a really fantastic cover. So anyway, I'm going to go through the songs a little bit in this case because it's an interesting potpourri of sound. So we start out with Freedom Train, which is a real nice blues rocker with some great slide and these gruff vocals. Then it goes into Dirt Want, which has some really nice guitar overdubs and a lot of cool jamming and a lot of great dynamics. Then it goes into Odd Song, which is acoustic with piano, nice electric solo, and a little too long. I've noticed that with a lot of records. Sometimes they think they're onto a better idea than maybe they are. So that song gets a little too long. Fourth song is Eagle Song, nice, real heavy rocker, really nice, quirky arrangement, some really cool jamming on the second half. So that's one of the things that's nice about this record too. It's a nice mix of these rockers that have some room for jamming. I always like to hear some bands that can really jam and improvise. And when I hear that kind of stuff, it makes me realize that they were probably a pretty cool live band to see, especially if they lean more towards the heavier stuff. So the fifth song is "Where the Snow Lies Forever," piano and organ, nice ballad. The band sounds really good on it. And I should mention that the band overall is really strong. And as I mentioned, with the kind of the pedigrees they have, it's not surprising that they have an excellent rhythm section, really cool guitar players, and Gary Pickford Hopkins is a cool vocalist, and Gareth Mortimer does a nice job on his vocal work as well. The sixth song is kind of the big one, "Mother Greased the Cat," a real bruiser, really heavy. It's got a really nice melodic part to it, but that one is featured on a lot of anthologies, particularly of heavier UK rock, and it's a mother, and really it really makes the record. Although, like I say, I think the whole record's really strong. Seventh song is "Time to Die." Nice acoustic bass, very melancholy. Nice break from some of the heavier rockers. Then song number 8 is "Mystic Mountain," which is what I call a grunt rocker, just really primitive and really pounding. It's great. Got some great harmonica and some great guitar soloing. And then they go into the final song, number 9, "Women and Children First," the title song. Very melodic, mid-tempo rocks. Got some nice harmonies. Um, this album certainly isn't one of those bands where you expect a lot of harmonies, and a lot of the songs don't have them, but it was nice to see them whip those out in the final song. And then when you get the CD, there's actually an alternate version of the opening song, "Freedom Train," which has a lot more jamming on it than the first version. So Ancient Grease, if you like bands like Edgar Broughton Band and Creepy John Thomas and Red Dirt and some of these blues-based uh, grunt rock UK rock albums, this one is a real humdinger. I think all the material is on it. It's pretty good. The slower numbers that they break it up with are really strong as well, and just a nice variety. And it's really, once again, kind of unfortunate that Ancient Grease didn't stick together and do another record or two, because they were definitely onto something cool here. And since it came out in July 1970, they had a lot of room to progress and move forward, and they were really good at everything they did. So if they'd made records following this one and only album, then I'm sure they would have been pretty good quality, particularly because it was still early in the 70s, 1970, so 71, 72, kind of like Edgar Broughton Band. They would have broadened their spectrum some, and then honed on being an even better hard rock band. But this one's a humdinger. For you collectors out there, you're probably going to want both copies. The U.S. copy, like I say, has such a wonderful cover. It's worth having. But the British pressing has a little better sound, and of course us vinyl junkies, we got to have both covers. So anyway, Ancient Grease, incredible record, great stuff, quality blues-based heavy rock from Wales, and check it out. I got it posted below, as I always do. Thanks for watching. I'm Brian Fox.